I learned that the temple in Jerusalem had a number of these receptacles for people to put in their contributions to support the temple. And they would rattle. No one had paper money or a check. Everything was a coin. And so you would hear when somebody rather pretentious approached and dumped a lot of coins into the container. And everybody was like, whoa, look at Mr. Jacob, what he put in. But hardly anybody would hear the sound of just two small coins. But Jesus did. Jesus heard the sound of those two coins, and he realized that she, a widow, poor, had contributed all she had. And he draws his disciples' attention to that moment. Guys, this is what I've been trying to tell you. If you are going to be my disciple, you've got to give your all. This poor widow is a symbol, a sign of what true discipleship is. You really give of yourself for the sake of this mission. Now Mark, before he gets to this part of the story, introduces us to the scribes at the beginning of the gospel today. It's a great moment to stand in front of you wearing long robes, all that kind of stuff, wide phylacteries. It's like, great, thank you, Jesus. And yes, I sometimes get a place of honor at a banquet. And I get to sit in the front of the synagogue and all of that. But Jesus warns the people about them. Especially strong is when he says, they devour the houses of widows. I don't know if Jesus ever said anything more strong about scribes and Pharisees, that they take advantage of vulnerable widows, devouring their houses, devouring whatever little they might have had. The widow herself may knowingly, unknowingly, in a sense, be contributing to her own oppression by putting money in the temple, contributing to a system that made widows the very poorest of the people in the land. Without a husband, they had no means, they had no social security, they had no pension, they didn't have food stamps. A widow had nothing. And yet, Jesus says scribes are taking advantage of these poor women. He says to his disciples, pay attention to the generous act that she just performed in front of us, unnoticed by anybody else in the temple area. It's good to know Jesus notices those little things you do for others. Go back to the widow in the first reading in Zarephath. Elijah comes from Israel, a refugee, fleeing not only the environmental disaster in his land of drought, but also political violence and threats against him, not unlike many refugees and immigrants in our own day. Fleeing such things. He comes and confronts a poor widow and asks for help. She has, as we read, hardly anything. In fact, the little bit she has was enough to maybe make a meal for her and her son, and probably then die. But he's bold and says, but before that happens, make me a little cake. And then a promise that that jar of oil and that container of flour will not go dry. Trust me, trust God in this moment. And this woman, like the woman in the gospel, is willing to give her all. She's willing to risk it all for this man who doesn't even speak her language, who's just kind of invaded her space, and yet she has a deep sense of we all are in solidarity with each other. Our humanity calls us to care about one another. And so she, in all of her poverty, does what she can to meet the needs of Elijah, the prophet. What motivates us to give? Why does a person give a morning a week to tutor a child in the school? Why does someone take some hours out of their busy schedule and spend time helping prepare and serve food next door to those who are homeless and poor? Why do we do that? Why does a parent lose a whole night's sleep over a sick child? That's easier to answer. Love. Love is what motivates us to give. Love is what motivates us to do for others what maybe no other motivation would do. What motivates you to contribute from your wealth or from your poverty? In August, you were asked to give special to the victims of things in Haiti. In September, a Dominican priest came and needed money from you to support the missions in Africa. In October, the broader church wanted your money for World Mission Sunday. Later this month, we want your money for the Catholic Campaign for Human Development. And finally, in December, we want your money for retired religious. Sometimes you grow weary. Now what do they want? Now what are they asking for? And of course, we want your regular contributions to the church. And I'll talk at the end of Mass about another special fund. We do grow weary, but and on the other hand, love. Love for people we don't even know. I don't know anybody in Haiti. I don't know the people that the Dominicans are ministering to in Africa. I don't know most of the people that will benefit from all these collections. I do know some of the retired religious. By the way, my picture is in the Catholic Telegraph as an advertisement for retired religious. Do I look retired? And standing in the background is Brother Tim. I mean, we're not retired people, but I don't know where that came from. But it is love that often motivates us to give, and to give what we can, not everything we have. But Jesus says to his disciples, you need to give as best you can. Time, talent, treasure. The reading from Hebrews sums it up, that Christ gave his all. Christ died in that one sacrifice for all of us, for the forgiveness of sins. There's the reason why we gather here. Christ died for all. It's why we come together again to celebrate the sacrifice of the Mass. That we believe that when he gave everything for us, we have all benefited from that great gift of his. So as we gather today, let us once again look at the widows. Look at those simple women as wonderful examples of what we may be asked to do and to give.